Can wait like another minute or two. People kind of tend to show up uh, in the first few minutes as opposed to early. So while we're waiting for more people to show up, feel free to fill out attendance as usual. All right, we'll get started here. So welcome to Peter Club as usual. Like I said, attendance if you haven't filled it out yet. And today we're just going to go over some esoteric languages. Esoteric. Probably should have looked at that. Some bad. So this was a presentation that Programming Club did last semester in October. So they're awesome. Then you probably know a little bit more going into this. But if you weren't there, the languages they covered was Sphere, also known as Shakespeare, white space. Um, they covered Sphere, which is a language that you have to type it up like you're talking like Shakespearean times. White space, which is purely just programming with white spaces. Chicken, the only valid input was chicken, so you just had to type chicken over and over and over again to get it to do what you wanted. Folders was programming with desktop folders. That's fun. Um, and the other one I want to point out was huge. I think is how you say it. That one, it was like a music programming language, so you kind of program with music notes. Kind of interesting. So that's what they covered. If you're interested in those languages, you can go to their website, dsuprog.club, I believe. They have the videos up, and you can watch that video. Today, what we're going to be covering are languages even more cursed than that. I know. How could you possibly have more cursed programming languages? You're about to find out. So here's a list. I'll explain what they are in a second here. So for those of you that maybe don't know what I am talking about, uh, that are like, what is she talking about here? So I'm talking about esoteric languages. So an esoteric language, or ESOLang or ESOLang for short, is a programming language that is designed to kind of experiment with these weird, crazy ideas that uh, people just kind of came up with randomly, and they're hard to program in. That's kind of the point. They're not really meant to make sense. They're just a joke. They're not meant for practical use. So realistically, you're never going to see these in a real world environment. You're never going to see these on a network. You're never going to see malware written in these languages. That's just not practical. I mean, props if someone could write malware in this type of language, but realistically, it's not going to happen. So first one I want to talk about here is emoji code, which is programming with emojis. Yeah, you heard that right. So let's see. Oops. Just want to grab this here. Link. Copy. So I want to take you guys through the official website of emoji code. So they call it, basically it's an open source programming language consisting of emojis, and they do have it pretty good documented, which is pretty nice. And they kind of just talk about a little bit about the language and why it's so great. And they believe emojis have an expressive force. So let's use that to make programming more fun. So right here is Hello World. That's how you program it. I can kind of see what they were going for, like with the flag is probably meant to simulate like a beginning of a function. The ABC is probably meant for like printf, or kind of to act as like the quotes of a printf, and then inside is what you want printed out. I'm guessing the exclamation point's more like a semicolon. It's yeah, really, it's a lot. They have a GitHub repo. Here's some of their documentation. So you have to set up the compiler and the engine, and they have a reference guide, and learning more about the packages. And then yeah, they have GitHub too. So it's a lot. Kind of, they go through it. It's pretty, like I said, documentation is pretty good. So got to give them credit for that. That they wanted people to be able to learn this and make usable code with it. So that's emoji code. Next one is spooky. So it's very similar to emoji code, but you get to use words, and you can only use spooky emojis. So then, come on. Wish there was a better way to do that. So here's Spooky's website, and so they have downloads and their GitHub link. So you need a specific compiler for it. So that would be, if you were going to program in this, you would need to get that, install it. Down here is Hello World, I guess, but they're not saying Hello World, they're just saying uh-oh skeletons, I think. That, or they're printing out an array. So you can see the top, and then here they're making an array, it looks like. And then they're putting the string in the array. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. Print and then scream, that's obviously your printf, and then print out the list. So that's pretty simple. And then skull and crossbones terminates the program. So it's like your return. So this one, obviously they just talk about it, kind of what their plan was, why they picked what they picked, and all that fun stuff. Like I said, documentation's a little lacking. They kind of have it, but not really. They have a Docker image, I guess, that you could use. Here's more documentation, thankfully. Here we go. Now they actually explain the variables and values. They're booleans, strings. There we go. So this, if you were going to program in this language, you definitely need to go to the GitHub and go through all the documents you can find in order to find these reference pages. So very good. So that's spooky. Emoji code and spooky, at least you can kind of understand what they're going for here. Arnold C is something completely different. Arnold C is a programming language that is based on the one-liners of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Can't make this up. So this is Hello World, I have pictured here. And let me see here. Go there. So here's their GitHub. They do have a website. I think it's like arnoldc.org, but it's not a very good website. All it really does is link you to the GitHub, and the GitHub has obviously the documentation that you want. So like I said, here's Hello World. It's showtime. Starts it. Talk to the hand. Printf. You have been terminated. It's your return. And it seems to me that it's kind of written on top of Java. So, or it's like Java file, Java repo. So that's pretty interesting. So I'm assuming you would need Java installed already on your system in order to work with this Arnold language. So here's just some of the keywords. Boolean, true and false, if else, end your if, while loops, end your while loop, and or, here's your return, all that fun stuff. Oh, if you want to read an integer, you have to type all of that out. So as opposed to just read integer, just gotta type all that out. So I'm assuming white space is needed. So that's pretty fun. We wouldn't want to program in that. But yeah, here's the link, the GitHub, so you can read up on language and potentially program in it. So the next one I want to talk about is low code. So low code is based on lolcat. So iCan has cheeseburger. That's what it's based on. So Ken has standard IO, so the standard IO header folder, and then hi world. Okay, thanks, bye. It's return. So just check out their website here. Not a whole lot to it. They don't have a GitHub from what I was able to find. So yeah, there's their hello world. Oh, here we go. So they do have a GitHub repo that you can pull down and install. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Yeah, the language, we got an interpreter. Here's the GitHub page. So let's see, anything. Comments are begun with by the way, as opposed to, 2 slashes or slash asterisk. Multi-line comments begin with OBTW, TLDR. Let's see, is there anything? To declare a variable, you have to say I has a, followed by the variable name. So lots of typing. Boolean, so you have true, fail. Let's see, what else? Yeah, there's lots of good documentation. If you enjoyed those memes of the past, lolcat, iCan has cheeseburger, iCan has this, that. This might be a fun language for you to just kind of mess around in. I should have turned off notifications. So yeah, that's lol code. And how can you say no to this adorable little cat block? So last but not least is brackets. So if you were the person in 15250 that always left off the end bracket on your function or what have you, well, this is the programming language for you. Why? Because it's all brackets, nothing else. There's only 4 unique characters. So that's open parenthesis, closing parenthesis, open bracket, closing bracket. Good stuff. And I guess it's technically 6 because you can also use the greater than less than signs. So their documentation's technically wrong. Come here. Be here. So yeah, brackets. It's a stack-based language. They should actually say 8 actually. technically 8 unique characters because you have the open, closing, open, closing, open, closing. In my opinion, that's 8, but maybe they count that as open and closing only as 1. So this language, it's not really meant for like hello world or really meant for words. It's more of a arithmetic math kind of language. You know, if you were to use this to calculate something, you'd want it to be running math problems as opposed to printing out strings and talking to the user. So some of the things people have been able to do in this language is they've been able to print out the alphabet. Um, they can do while loops, if statements, if else. They got the brackets interpreter link, so you can download that. Um, kind of thinking um, you would almost need to use like ASCII or I think it's ASCII, where the letters correspond to a number. That is potentially how you could get strings to print, but obviously very complicated. And yeah, it's pretty much what you do is you just use a combination of open and closing to tell it what you want it to do. And honestly, just looking at this, I couldn't tell you what does what. It's pretty hard for a human to read. And I don't blame people for like looking at this and going, ew, no way would I ever want to use this. And I forgot to talk about this, but there are tons of other languages out there. Let's see. This link, come here. This link is to the Esolangs wiki, and you're, as you'll see here, this is a very, very, very long page with every single language Esolang that has ever been created. Some of these are really good. They have a lot of documentation. They have a lot of ways for you to kind of learn how to work it and make programs that make sense. And some of these make literally no sense, and they're not meant to. They're not meant to really work. Basically, someone was just like, I made a language, and it's an esoteric language. They submitted it to the wiki. Wiki was like, okay, guess it counts, just so they could like have their name somewhere, you know, on an official website. So yeah, there's tons of languages. I mean, we only hit E. There's H. Blah, 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 blah. Like it's a lot. One I wanted to show that I did not make a slide on should be here is whenever this one is a little weird and I didn't know how to explain it, but basically whenever is a language that just does it just executes your statements when it wants and in whatever order it wants. So it's kind of like race conditions in a way, in that a program, you know, say you wanted to print A first, then B, this language could potentially print B first, then A, which is a little, and then it might take like 5 minutes before it decides to actually run. So that's infuriating, but funny. This one is a different list. This list was curated by Angry Koala, which is great, good name. And basically, they looked at it and said, looked at this huge language list and said, we need to trim this down into actual usable languages. And there's still quite a bit that they have listed, but it's definitely a lot more manageable. So yeah, you can see a lot of the languages that programming clubs talked about that I've talked about today here in this list. You can see Shakespeare, Spooky, right there, whenever. They talk a little bit about some of the algorithms. So there's actually esoteric algorithms. I don't know if I would recommend using them because it is probably not in your best interest to run those because that who knows what you get, honestly. And then they kind of have this miscellaneous section, which is got a toolkit, CSS, all that, JavaScript library. Here's some of their resources that you can go see even more languages, ESO languages, list of ideas. I think that might just be like potential ideas for someone want make a Soviet script. So it's a language. Someone wants to make a language that like memes on USSR. That would be hilarious, and I'd love to see that. What other languages do they want to make? I don't see any that stick out here. They want to make a pyramid scheme style programming language, so it's probably just kind of riffing on pyramid schemes, and not sure what their plan would be for how it would work or what it would do, but sure they would find something. A programming language that of Duke Nukem quotes, yeah, someone wants to make that apparently. So someday we'll probably see that here on the GitHub. And then here's some like derivative ideas. So taking an esoteric language that's already been created and then kind of making an offshoot of it. You can that's a pretty common thing. They want to make more music languages. Yeah, all sorts of crazy ideas that are floating around on the internet that people are like, yes, let's do this and make this. So those are two really good resources for if you want to learn more about esoteric languages and, you know, your own someday, maybe you have this really cool idea, maybe just checking on those resources to make sure it hasn't already been created, or it could give you ideas on how to make your language work would also be really good. Um, but yeah, so does anyone have any questions, or did they see a language or know about a language that they want me to show off to the rest of the group? No. Okay, well, it's pretty much all I had. Pretty short meeting. If you're like me, probably have stuff to do tonight, and I'll probably relieve that it's short so you can go eat or uh, go work on homework like me. So anyway, yeah, that was pretty much it. Hope you learned something. I'm cursed with this knowledge, so now you guys have to be cursed with the same knowledge that I now know of, aka the existence of the Arnold Schwarzenegger language. But yeah, fill out attendance if you haven't already, and we'll see.